Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be taking Unit 1, Lesson 3, How Living Things Survive, Part 2. So how do living things survive? First, let's learn about the environments we have. Remember in the last lesson, we talked about life. We talked about life in ocean. Ocean. Ocean is a very large body of salty water. Salty water is water that we cannot drink. We can only drink fresh water. Many animals live in the ocean, like the octopus. Octopus. Also sharks. Sharks. And jellyfish. And seahorses. And dolphins. Many plants live in the ocean, like seaweed and algae. Algae grows on the rocks inside the ocean. Algae. What do animals of the ocean need to survive? They need gills. Gills to breathe. Animals in the ocean need gills to breathe. They also need fins to swim. Fins are like arms and legs for the fish. Fins. The fishes have a lot of fins. Why do most animals live on the top of the ocean? Animals live on the top of the ocean so they can find food. Food is easier to find in the top of the ocean. Why do most plants live on the top of the ocean? Because so they can get sunlight. Because they can get sunlight. Because plants need sunlight to grow. Question 1. What body parts fish use to breathe? Gills, correct. Question 2. What body parts fish use to swim? Fins, correct. Question 3. What means a very large body of salty water and it's bigger than sea? Is it forest, desert, or ocean? Ocean, correct. Question 4. The place where living and non-living things live. Is it forest, environment, or ocean? Environment, correct. Next is life in marsh. Marsh. Marsh is a wetland. Marsh is a land that's covered with water and it's wet, but the water is not as much as the ocean. It's not as deep as the ocean. Many animals live in the marsh, like ducks, alligators, frogs, and the great egret. The great egret have long feet to stand up in that deep water. The water in the marsh are not so deep, so you don't need very long legs. You just need the legs as the egret has to stand up in the water in the marshes. The great egret also have a long sharp beak to get their food, to start getting their food and their fish from the water in the marsh. The plants that grow in the marsh are called water lilies. Water lilies. They're called water lilies because they only grow in water. They don't grow on land. They only grow in water and they're called water lilies. Water lilies have roots that take in nutrition from the soil. The roots are deep down in the water and they take their nutrition from the soil. Water lilies also have long stems that help the leaf get the light and air they need to grow. Let's solve these questions together. What is a wetland that's covered by water? Is it great egrets, water lilies, or marshes? Marshes, correct. Next question. What have a long stem to help the leaves to get the light and air? The water lilies, correct. What has a long feet to stand up in the water? Great egrets, correct. Next, let's do what's like and different. Both are water environment. Both ocean and marshes are water environment. What is different between the ocean and marsh? The ocean is larger and deeper than the marsh. The marsh only has a little bit of water. It's not deep. That's how the great egret stands in the marsh. but the ocean has very deep water. Next is life in the forest. Life in forest. Forest is a place that's covered with many trees. It have plenty of water and air for the trees and animals to live and survive in the forest. It's a good place for animals. They provide the animals with food, water, and shelter. Shelter, like the trees, is a place where the birds can live, and caves for the animals that walk on land. Many animals live in the forest, like the deer, and birds, bears, monkeys. They like to live in the forest so they can jump from a tree to a tree. And porcupines. Porcupines have sharp quills to protect themselves from enemies. Plants that grows most in the forest are called pine trees. Pine trees are the trees they use for Christmas. Pine trees. The pine trees have needles instead of leaves. They don't have leaves like normal trees, but they have needles. Now let's solve this worksheet together. Question 1. What is a land covered with many trees? Forest. Correct. Question 2. Forests have plenty of water and air for trees and animals to live and survive. Question 3. Forest is a good place for animals. They provide animals with water, shelter, and food. Next question. Circle the pine tree. Correct. Now the next environment we have is desert. Life in desert. Desert is a very dry place. The temperature in the desert can be very hot or very cold. The reason it becomes very hot is because there is no trees to protect you from the sunlight. And the reason it gets very cold at night is the same reason, because there are no trees or walls that can protect you from the cold air. That's why the desert is very hot in the morning and very cold at night. That's why also the desert have very few living things. Not a lot of living things like to live in the desert because it's a very hot place in the morning and a very cold place at night. Animals that live in the desert are lizards, snakes, and camels. How does a camel survive in the desert? First, camel, they do not need to drink a lot of water every day because they know how to store the water in their body. So they drink a lot of water in one day, and that can keep them from drinking water for a week or 2 weeks. Next, the camel, they don't need to eat food every day either because they know how to store the food in something called humps. Only camels have humps that help them store food so they can eat in one day and stay 2 or 3 weeks without any food because the food is stored in the hump. The food that's stored in the hump is called fats. The camel also have very big feet to help them walk on sand. We all know that walking on sand can be a little bit hard. It's not easy as walking on normal land, so you really need a big feet like the camel to walk on the sand easily. Next, how do camel survive in the sunlight? Because camel have very thick skin that helps them that protects them from the hot weather. They have thick skin. The plants that live in the desert are called cactus. Cactus are the most common plants that's found in the desert. Cactus has a thick stem to hold water. It has a thick stem to hold water. Cactus has sharp needles to prevent animals from eating it. Cactus has sharp needles to prevent any animal from eating it. Let's solve this question together. How are cactus and camel like and different? First, what are they like? Both live in the desert, correct. And they both are living things, correct. Next, what's different between a cactus and a camel? A cactus is a plant, correct. A camel is an animal, correct. Next, let's match the following. A cactus had a thick stem. Where is that matched to? To store fats, to hold water, or to walk on the sand easily? To hold water, correct. A camel has a hump to store what? To store fats, which is food that's turned into fats, correct. A camel has a wide feet to walk on the sand easily, correct. Next, let's solve this. Choose the correct answer. Question 1. What's a very dry land? Is it desert, forest, or ocean? It's a desert, correct. Question 2. What is the most common desert plant? Is it trees, algae, or cactus? It's cactus, correct. Question 3. What is an animal that can live in a desert? Is it an elephant, a camel, or a shark? A camel, correct. Question 4. What is a cactus has a what to hold water? It has a thick stem to hold water. Question 5. There are what living things in a desert? Is there a few living things or there's a lot of living things? No, there are few living things in the desert because the desert is a very hard place to live in. Question 6. A camel has a what that helps it live without food and water for a long time? A camel has a hump. A hump. Correct. Question 7. A what has sharp needles? Is it a cactus or a tree? A cactus, correct, to help prevent the leaves to be eaten, to protect themselves from animals. It has sharp needles. Finally, we have life in grassland. Grassland. Grassland is a place with lots of grass and few trees. Grassland is a place with lots of grass and few trees. The grass has a long, narrow leaves to hold the water in. Animals that live in the grassland are lions, and elephants, and giraffes, and cows, and sheep. Animals that live in grassland like to live in a group. Animals in grassland live in large groups to protect themselves from enemies, especially animals that don't eat other animals and are a little bit weaker. Animals in the grassland like the sheep and cows, they live in large groups to protect themselves from enemies like lions and tigers. We also have zebras that like to live in a grassland. Zebras have very sharp front teeth to bite the grass off. Zebras have sharp front teeth to bite the grass off. These are the different types of grass. There are green grass, and there are not very green grass, and then there is yellow grass. The yellow grass is most likely in Africa, where the lions and tigers and elephants live. The very green grass is where the cows and sheep like to live. Now let's solve this together. Question 1. What is an environment with lots of grass and few trees called? Grassland, correct. Question 2. Animals in grassland live in what to protect themselves from enemies? In large groups, correct. Next, question 3. Zebras have what to bite the grass off? Has sharp front teeth, correct. Next, camel stores water and food in its hump, correct. Forest means land covered with many trees, correct. What is a dry environment? The desert, correct. Let's match the following. Where do monkeys and gorillas like to live? In the desert, forest, or ocean? In the forest. Correct. Next, what is fish? Where does the fish and shark like to live? In the ocean. Correct. Where does the camel live? In the desert. Correct. Thank you.